Little bit of a rough night for us Warrior fans here. I'm not even going to front you. I took an extra hour of sleep because I went to bed an extra hour late. Just the adrenaline and all that. But I'm not mad. I'm not salty about it. You know, Warriors come out. I thought the interesting strategic move to start the game was putting Draymond on Chris Paul. And I get the train of thought behind that. One, his length and know-how, right, to avoid fouls, perhaps change some of the passing angles for Chris Paul because, again, he's not used to a player that big on him. And then the concept of now they can switch the 8 and pick and rolls, and all of a sudden you have Draymond on him. But the problem was then you have Looney on Chris Paul. DeAndre Ayton, let's face it, he was the X factor. He showed up last night. Phoenix knew that was their advantage, and they didn't hide it. They went right to it immediately, old school style. And I think the most glaring thing that stood out to me in that game was the gap in athleticism with their front court to our front court. Some of its age, right, and just overall, and we knew size could potentially be an issue. Jordan Poole kind of bailed us out to start, right? And that's the thing about JP. You like his mental makeup for big games. Say what you want, he's sporadic. There's certain things. He's kind of a weird kid, right? But weird in a good way. But you knew it even back to his Michigan days. He is the type of player that embraces the big moment. He showed up in the play-in game against the Lakers, right? And so it wasn't surprising for me to see him go off. Also, given the matchups, I did a pregame live of this thing on my Patreon yesterday evening, and I thought Poole might be the X factor when you looked at all the cross matches, right? And so Poole goes off, and I think that's a huge silver lining that we can take from this game is that I think Poole is going to tend to show up in these big moments. Again, because of his mental makeup, he wants these moments. A lot of these players, all the players say they do, but Jordan Poole, nah, he likes the big stage, the big games. Now, Devin Booker, when was it? Late in that first quarter, early second quarter, hard drive, coast to coast. He comes up gimpy on that left hamstring. And if you haven't paid attention, Book has had hamstring issues throughout his career. I know people point to Chris Paul, who has as well. And I've seen Devin Booker hurt the hamstring on that same type of drive multiple times. A couple people, why people aren't maybe as aware of it is because it's happened when the Suns were so bad, it didn't really matter. There was times where Devin missed huge chunks of time because of hamstring pulls, but again, the Suns were in the basement, so it wasn't really on Front Street league-wide, right? Someone was asking, is it playing style? Is it the way he plays? No, I'm someone who has tight hamstrings as well, and a lot of the time it's your anatomy, like the way you're built, your hamstrings are tighter. If he has an interior pelvic tilt, which means a lot of athletes have where they're a little bit tilted forward. So then what that does is it lengthens the hamstring. So it could just be anatomy. I don't really think Booker is a reckless player or anything like that, but it's something that again has nagged him. So he goes out, that loses some of the steam of the matchup. Right now, all of a sudden, I felt like the pressure had flipped because initially going into the game, I thought, the pressure's on the Suns. They're at home. They're trying to set the franchise record for wins. And as special as their run was a year ago and how good they've been, look, let's face it, the Warriors have more clout, right? And the Warriors can kind of sit back and rest on their accolades. I felt like last night's game was more important to the Suns. But when Devin Booker went out, it was all of a sudden like, all right, well now, Warriors should probably win this, right? Problem was Andrew Wiggins wasn't Andrew Wiggins, at least not the Andrew Wiggins we've seen this year. And that's kind of a tough situation because biggest game of the season, right? So it looks weak if he doesn't play. He's going to catch flack if he doesn't play, but at the same time, he clearly wasn't right. So it was a damned if you do, a damned if you don't situation for Wiggs. I understood why he played. We'll see if he plays Friday. Maybe with Booker out, now they feel like they've got to rest Wiggins. Because we got to keep the big picture in mind. Both these teams have to. I don't know the severity of Devin Booker's hamstring. If this was a playoff game, he might have still played. But again, we're not even 20 games into the season. So both sides have to keep the big picture in mind. What I was disappointed in was Draymond has been so aggressive this year downhill and putting pressure on defenses and shooting the shots that he needs to take. not even shots, finishing at the rim when he needs to, really is what it is. And all of a sudden, last night, Draymond kind of turned back into the last 2 years where he was just he lost his aggression. There was a scoop layup that he had that he smoked somewhere, I think, in the third quarter. And if you go and you watch it, I'll show it in the breakdown today for sure. His eyes were on the weak side corner the whole time, and then at the last second, he tried to scoop and flip it, and he smoked it because he didn't have that mindset of putting pressure on the rim. Now, maybe we should credit the length of the Suns' DeAndre Ayton. As nice as he was offensively initially in the game, his biggest impact was rim protection. And I think you saw that affect all our guys, maybe outside of Gary Payton, who it doesn't matter who's in there, right? But Juan T was in there. And look, man, Juan, if Juan, I know that we can talk about the turnovers, and you got to credit the Suns defense for a lot of that. But my biggest gripe with Juan was you have to shoot the open threes. When you're playing an elite defense, you can't pass up open shots. And I saw him do that several times. And, a lot of people were complaining that Chiozza played a lot. But here's the thing. The thing that I noticed was Chiozza wasn't fazed by the stage, And it looked like Juan kind of was fazed by the stage last night. Now, the beauty in this is we get to see it again Friday. I don't think it'll be as big of a stage. It won't matter as much, but role players tend to play better at home, and our role players didn't play well. A lot of Chiozza, a lot of Bielitsa, Otto Porter. There's another silver lining, right? Because clearly he's ready for the big stage. And that's in part a lot of I'm not going to go too deep into it. Again, we'll have the breakdown. What else do I want to say about this right now? Because I know y'all wanted my thoughts on this. Okay, Steph. We got to talk about it. Worst shooting night of his career when he shot, over 20 shots. I saw a thread on Twitter, Warriors World. My guy was like, well, he got his shots. He got his normal shots. He just missed them, right? You can say that in this instance. Steph is, out of any shooter in the world, how much cachet has Steph earned? Like, Steph could go cold for a month. He could not make a shot for a month. He's still fucking Steph Curry, right? Like, he can have off nights. But Mikal Bridges, his length was closing the windows. We saw it in Charlotte with McDaniels. McDaniels bothered Steph, that lanky, super thin frame where they're able to get through screens, but then the length and agility to close out, these little windows. And Steph needs the smallest of windows to shoot, but those windows were shrunk. So yeah, Steph missed some open shots. He did. He couldn't get a rhythm, but we have to give Mikal Bridges credit for closing that window and not allowing that rhythm, because I think what happens is he was so attached, and his closeout ability is so far that Steph was kind of hearing footsteps. You usually hear that term in football with a quarterback, right? I thought Steph was hearing footsteps. So you got to credit Mikal Bridges, and that's the biggest takeaway, right? Steph's in the middle of what looks like his third MVP campaign. The Suns, is this going to become a new rival? This looks like the two power teams in the Western Conference. If Mikal Bridges can slow down and contain Steph Curry in a potential playoff matchup, what is there to say about that, right? That is the huge advantage Suns, right? Then you have to favor the Suns in this matchup moving forward. But now, again, the beauty of this, we see this team 3 times in December, Friday night again. And so we've got to see a bigger sample size. Let's see how the Warriors counter and how Steph, as you expect him to probably explode at Chase Center on Friday night in that same matchup. I thought the mistake strategically, we've seen this time and time again with Steve Kerr, where they should have just went to a traditional pick and roll, right? If they were flashing Ayton high, sometimes switching, then wear Ayton out up top. Go to the pick and roll. There was too much off-ball stuff. I thought Bridges, that's where he shined. And I know he's a good ISO on-ball defender as well. But again, I think that when Steph's having trouble scoring off the ball, it's very simple. It's elementary. Put him on the ball. And we didn't see that enough last night. And that's a kind of a gripe with Kerr, right? That's a thing that happens, Warrior fans, that drives Warriors fans crazy. Again, check out the full breakdown of this later on my Patreon. Support your boy.